The money being thrown around in football today is a damning indictment of the direction the world itself is headed in. Players who possess all the talents of an unripened banana are fetching price tags that would provide a country with enough drinking water to last a lifetime. See Jack Grealish, only for them to contribute nothing of substantial value towards their club, diminishing the side's financial return when they're eventually sold on. See inevitably Jack Grealish. But sadly, the same applies to Liverpool, and today we're going beyond the cop and looking at 10 players who lost Liverpool money. Now, just for a bit of admin, I've tried to sort of avoid those players who were brought for decent fees, but left in circumstances where the departure was to be expected due to their age or position in the squad. So the likes of Adam Lallana, Glenn Johnson, Nathaniel Klein, Roberto Firmino, Thiago Alcantara aren't on the list among many others. These are players who should have increased in value or at the very least stayed flat, but because of one reason or another, it didn't work out. Number 10, Djibril Cisse. The summer of 2004 saw Liverpool lose their two main striking options after Emile Heskey made the jump to Birmingham City and Michael Owen decided to shoot his legacy and credibility in the foot by making the switch to Spain, where he contributed dick all, take note Trent. So he had to make acquisitions, which came in the form of Fernando Morientes, whose name almost brings me to comatose, and the £14 million signing of French international and FA Cup final goal-scoring attacker Djibril Cisse, who was one of the hottest commodities in French football following his 30-goal season with Auxerre. The signing was pretty mixed at points, with his first season seeing him go into a tackle which saw his studs get stuck in the floor and turning his leg into that scene from Harry Potter where he basically bent his arm back, putting him out of action from October 2004 until April 2005. He then followed it up with a 19-goal season before he was moved on to Marseille permanently in 2007 in a deal worth around £6 million. Not the worst loss the club have ever made from a transfer, but considering the expectation and talent of the striker, it's a shame that the club couldn't at least recoup the same amount they paid just 3 years earlier. Number 9, El Hadji Diouf. I don't want to stay on this entry too long, alright? It's the 5th list video on this channel where the worst human being to set foot through the doors of Anfield has appeared, but it's such a phenomenon and abnormality on the face of humankind that he constantly appears like Beetlejuice, but without the winning personality, and I'm pretty sure Beetlejuice scored more goals in his career than Diouf did. Signed him for £10 million, which in 2025 has a market value of 18 million, a fact which doesn't get any easier to deal with time. He scored 6 goals in 2 years before we sold him on to Bolton for around £2 million, giving us a loss of 8 million at the time, meaning we paid 1.6 million for every goal he scored while at the Reds, and I feel like I need to be institutionalised right now. Number 8, Ryan Babel. Back in 2007, Ryan Babel, then 21, was brought into Liverpool for around £14 million after the departure of Cisse, Bellamy, Garcia and Pongoye meant that we needed a bit of extra attacking options other than Peter Crouch and Dirk Kuyt. Giving Voronin certainly wasn't doing the job, hence the reason we also signed Fernando Torres that window, but at least we made a profit on him. Ryan Babel, on the other hand, ended up selling for £8 million, £6 million less than we bought him for. To be fair, he wasn't a bad player, scoring 22 goals and picking up 15 assists as essentially a backup player, which included the winner against Man United in 2008, the long-range effort against Lyon in the Champions League 2009, and the winner against Trabzonspor in 2010. The lad was decent, but you can't help but think this transfer value decreased because of his attitude and behaviour on Twitter, which of all things resulted in him being sold to Hoffenheim at a loss for the club, despite him being at the peak of his career and still being a creative and fast wide player who would have increased in value. Number 7, Robbie Keane. A transfer which decreased in value quicker than Hoctor's crypto scam. Hooray for the late 2000s and their mental transfer strategy of signing whoever for whatever price. Now, to be fair, Robbie Keane is a Tottenham legend. I will not dispute this, and he was certainly someone who on paper should have improved Liverpool at a time where Fernando Torres was our only real central threat, essentially, after we signed him for £20 million. However, Rafa saw otherwise and thought the best way to play the two of them was to push Keane out wide and out of position, meaning he was able only to contribute 7 goals in 29 matches before Tottenham came back in for the Irishman like a desperate ex, saying they'll change their entire personality to be with the person who left them again, and he was then sold in the January transfer window that same season, lest we forget, for £12 million, meaning his value decreased by £8 million in the space of 5 months. Bloody hell. By that logic, if Tottenham had just waited until the summer, we could have only cost £4 million, a mental transfer for mental outcome and a mental time to be a Liverpool fan. Number 6, Andy Carroll. I can't say I'm surprised that we sold Andy Carroll for less than we bought him for, when the fee we bought him for was about 3 times the value he was worth. It's like buying a tree trunk with your mortgage, or paying anything more than 20p for a Freddo. I'm just going on a tangent. Seriously, 40p for a Freddo is extortion, and this country's going to sorted out Cadbury's. But losing £20 million on a then England international is awful business, regardless of what club you are. We bought him for £35 million in the January 2011 transfer window after we went to DEFCON 5 following the sale of Fernando Torres to Chelsea, and we sold him to West Ham in 2013 for £15 million following a season and a half which saw him score 11 goals, including that winner against Everton in the FA Cup semi-final, which Carragher described as worth £35 million in and of itself. I'm not sure about that one, Carra. Number 5, Stewart Downing. Oh, good. We're back in the early 2010s, a period of time where all sense and purpose and reason seems to fly out the window like a hotel room couch being stolen. I mean, of the Roy Hodgson and, to be fair, with the exceptions of Henderson and Suarez, King Kenny signings, Stewart Downing wasn't exactly the worst, but he certainly didn't justify £20 million we bought him for from Aston Villa, showcasing the crossing talent of a drunk Newcastle fan. Congratulations on the parade, by the way, take notes, Man City. And when we were mercifully flogged him off to West Ham in the summer of 2013 for £5 million, this represented a loss of £15 million for someone who was signed for the Reds with all the hope and expectation that a young England international tends to carry around with them. See also Michael Johnson, Patrick Bamford and John Flanagan, aka Cafu. Downing was a prime example of someone who was signed with the right intent, but he just couldn't contribute anything of substance beyond 7 goals and 9 assists in 91 appearances. Number 4, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. When I get to a list of players whose careers were derailed by injuries, you can guarantee that Oxlade-Chamberlain will be on the list alongside Neil Mellor and probably Michael Stensgaard, because seriously he got his arse kicked by an ironing board, lest we forget. Oxlade-Chamberlain was really making waves in the Liverpool starting 11, scoring vital goals against Man City in both the Premier League and Champions League, and picking up 4 assists in his last 8 matches before tearing his cruciate ligament in that Champions League semi-final against Roma at Anfield, keeping him out injured for 317 days, missing 58 matches in the process, meaning he lost the starting spot in the squad, meaning the value of the player dropped from the £35 million that we signed him for in 2017 to 0 by the time he was released at the end of his contract in 2023. A talented midfielder who was capable of scoring a great goal, hacked down at his prime and losing us £35 million. And I know this was contract expiry and I'm going back on my own rules, but it's my list, so do one. But the fact we couldn't earn anything back from this lad is a damn shame. Number 3, Alberto Aquilani, the little prince, the Italian man with a good medical plan. It's Alberto Aquilani, Liverpool's solution to losing Xabi Alonso in the summer window, which is like losing a child only to replace it with a blind flamingo with one functioning kneecap. To be fair, the reputation of Aquilani is what prompted Liverpool to swoop in on the 7th of August when they bought the 2-time Coppa Italia winner for £17 million before giving him the number 4 shirt worn by Sami Hyypiä in a moment of blasphemy so disgraceful it's like walking into a church and on the bishop's head. 28 games later, 26 of which came in the first season, by the way, and the midfielder was being linked with a move back to Italy, which saw him loaned to Juventus and Milan before Fiorentina got him on a free transfer, meaning both us and Roma missed out on financial benefits for the player's sale. Honestly, that's just so funny. Like, I genuinely can't comprehend it. Can you hear me laughing? Aha, ha, ha. Aha. We bought one of the most highly respected Italians in European football at the time, and he was as useful as a razor blade on hairless skin, with even Roy Hodgson seeing sense to get rid of him on loan. What a timeline. Number 2, Lazar Markovic. I've made it very public. My disdain for Lazar Markovic cannot be comprehended and can only be described as the way a vegan looks at a piece of belly pork or how Ange Postecoglou looks at defensive football. So I won't spend too long destroying my brain cells and aging myself further because, you know, life's too short. Much like Markovic's list of appearances for Liverpool after we signed him, comically, by the way, for £20 million in the summer of 2014, after Suarez walked out the door knowing we'd never find anyone better. To be fair, how are we supposed to know that a promising European winger coming from Portugal would flop so hard it's like a flaccid cock in a snowstorm? He made as much contribution as a piece of kitchen roll does in a tsunami and was loaned out again and again and again and again before someone mercifully had the compassion to take him out the back and put him out of his misery for a free transfer to Fulham, where he made 1 appearance. Number 1, Naby Keita. If there was ever an advertisement for over-promising and under-delivering, you can bet that Naby Keita's £59 million transfer fee from RB Leipzig in 2018 would be towards the top, along with the maiden voyage of the Titanic and the career of Mario Balotelli. It's hard to separate the three, if we're being honest. When he joined Liverpool, Keita looked like a perfect addition to the squad, getting a pre-assist, as sickening as that phrase is, in his first match against West Ham before his legs.exe stopped responding and led to him suffering 9 injuries during his 5 years at the club, all of which saw him miss a total of, this almost made me choke when I researched it, 66 matches, which is almost 2 full seasons worth of Premier League games. For sake, and you're telling me this man passed his medical but Nabil Fekir failed his? After we released the man, he had the bone structure of a yogurt and was released at the end of his contract in 2023, giving us a loss of £59 million, as mentioned earlier, and there just isn't enough verbs in the world to describe this whole saga, with that fish from SpongeBob whose bones are made of glass being more structurally sound than this professional athlete. I want a positive list now, please and thank you.